Three, two, one. Welcome to the Live Drive Jive Archive. I'm your host, Frank Monday, broadcasting from the Central Kingdom of the Celestial Dragon, Twilight Zone OP King. How is the sound levels? Give me a yo if we're okay on sound. Welcome, Wizard Warrior, Wanderer, Wayfarer, and Wildcat alike. Wherever you are, whenever you are, and whoever you are receiving this transmission, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whatever it may be for you. The roads are a little wet this morning. I think it rained last night, but I was in Dreamland. Interesting adventures in Dreamland. But I got the memory wipe right before I got back. I remember I was really getting it though. I was engaging in something just amazing. And then blank, brought back into the world a solid blank. And I think part of the reason is for that yesterday is because I was so overtired. Like after getting back from travel and spending 2 days at work, I was overtired. And I woke up this morning feeling, it's raining again now, feeling pretty overtired. Wow. And people are just really going slow. Not even out of caution, just out of being dummies. Oh, come on. Really? Really? Oh, no. Guy last minute pulls in front of me, even though he sees me coming around the bend. Really? What a jerk off. Oh, well. You're going to have that on the big jobs, right? There's always that one jerk off. So what's going on out in Happy Land? Did you guys hear the supposed warning by Tucker Carlson that he thinks the US is going to try to have a hot war with the Ruskies? I think that's a little bit I think it's a little pig-headed on his part to say that in the position he's in. But at the same time, you never know, man, with those guys. The um, military industry complex. Blow it up, rebuild it, blow it up. They always blow up the good stuff, though, the stuff that can't be rebuilt. That was built, hundreds, if not thousands of years ago, hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And it's just beautiful. Like Dresden is a good example. Even I use the firebombing of London during the Blitzkrieg. But at least Hitler, from what I understand, tried to avoid anything historical and just targeted military operations, the military industry. Whereas the Allies, when they flew really into Germany, they blew up everything of beauty. They said it was to demoralize the German spirit. But that's not, it was about erasing the past and possibly erasing the impetus that made them feel so elevated around all of that, breathtaking, ineffable architecture that they just couldn't even fathom. They're like, well, yeah, our ancestors must have known something because look what they left us. And it's funny how there's a big disconnect too. Like the generic canned stories of how some of those things came about. There's a hotel, it's called a hotel, but it's really a palace in, I think it's somewhere in like Minnesota or something, just out in the middle of nowhere. And it's unfathomably beautiful. I can't remember the name of it right off the top of my hat, but uh, I saw it on several of those Tartarian truther channels. Now, one of my favorites is John Levi. I don't know if you guys ever watch him or not. JonLevi, John Levi. You should watch him if you don't. It's kind of a fun fantasy, right? Because anything that goes beyond the tangibly knowable in your present situation is kind of a realm. It's within the realm of imagination. You have to read about it, learn about it, hear about it, and then imagine it. But a lot of those places can be visited too. as I was brought, I was made aware by going to London and discovering the architectural beauty there. That you can visit the old world still. It's here too as well in China. The thing about Asian architecture, a lot of the really good stuff that's several hundred years old, is that they mostly built in wood, and wood's got a tendency to burn and deteriorate. They continue to rebuild it, but then you don't really know what you're looking at. You're like, yeah, well, you say it's 600 years old, but there's plenty of wood beams in here that are only a few decades old or 100 years old or something, because it's constantly been rebuilt, repaired. But still pretty neat to see. Uh, I would say that's one of the reasons why in China they still have artisans that know very old systems of architecture for building walls and pagoda like palaces and stuff like that, just rooms essentially, right? But because they continue to work with those elements, with the element of wood and the other things associated with it, they maintain those techniques into the modern time. And I've been to recent construction, like renovations, some of them renovations and some of them recent constructions, and they're able to recreate that old world architecture to some extent. Not entirely, obviously. I mean, people these days don't have the time or money that the people in ancient times obviously had, or the techniques. But they do tend to create Tong-esque and Ming-esque buildings that look pretty cool. That was one of the big attractions for me in coming to China, is that I've always been interested in Chinese architecture. I saw those flame-tipped pagodas and thought they looked pretty cool, and thought I would like to learn some of the basic techniques in creating that type of structure. As a kid, you think, hey, I could go over there and learn, and it's going to be like Lego blocks, and I'll just be able to throw it all together. But it turns out it's not that easy, right? As an adult, you learn the nuances of what's involved in getting something done, materials and tools and techniques and all of that. Well, it's a great day, guys. We got rainy skies. That's kind of nice. Um, I'm not really thinking about much of anything at all this morning. Just having my coffee. Make sure you guys check me out on www.buymeacoffee.com/Frank Monday and put a little something, something in the tip jar. That would help out the channel, because it does. I actually utilized some of that investment on my last trip. Man, that last trip was not cheap, but it was. It's they get the paper, I get the experience, right? So when you spend money, you might feel like, hey, opportunity cost. I could have used that money somewhere else, maybe. Um, but no, you got to do it occasionally. I'd like to go every year, and I think I could cut down on expense if there would have been reasonably priced tickets from China to the U.S. It would have been great, but because of the trade war, supposedly between the China and U.S., they've hiked up the prices on all those tickets. It's, as I had mentioned before, it was cheaper to fly to Europe it, it was cheaper to fly to America via Europe than it was to just fly straight to America, which I found baffling because you're taking twice the amount of flights. Like, I don't know, I think it was 12 hours to London, something like that. 11 or 12 hours from Beijing to London via. Did we stop at all? Doesn't seem like we did. I don't think there was a layover. Yeah, you can fly direct from Beijing to London. and then from Dublin to Boston was another 8 hours. So it was 20 hours of flying. And then when you add in all the additional hotel stays and meals and traveling about in Europe, well, in the UK, well, the Ireland's not a part of it. Yeah, I'm not, screw the politics of it, right? So that's considered to be Western Europe, right? Even though it's its own island, but they I guess it's claimed it's on the same continental area, but it's not. They say go to the continent for holiday, and that means the greater part of the Western Europe. How about a JP Farrell? You guys having a JP Farrell? I know some of you have quit smoking, and I applaud you. But don't forget, man, nobody in the world likes a quitter. All right, so don't give up. Just because you quit smoking doesn't mean you can give up on life. I switched over to using some Copenhagen. It's a brand of like chewing tobacco and dipping tobacco and that kind of thing. And so throughout the day, I've just been putting a little bit of Copenhagen in the mouth, and it works pretty good, man. Like you get pure nicotine out of that stuff, man. I mean, I guess that's what they say the interest in smoking is. But yeah, it does. It makes me less anxious, I guess, right? I think there's something about smoking that they they say it doesn't. They say it actually increases your anxiety, but it seems the process of doing it actually does kind of assuage any anxiety over um, being in situations where you're not doing exactly what you want to do. But at the same time, so I'm in those situations that I know that I can't smoke, then that energy gets redirected to meditation and hypnotic techniques and affirmations and stuff like that internally. I find sometimes I have to interact with some of my coworkers, and some of them are a pleasure, and you can really have a philosophical back and forth and bring out some good ideas and get some productive thinking done. But some particular individuals are such asinine uh, that gives you a moment just to sit back and let them talk and not let them talk too much, but let them. The Chinese have an expression. There's an old Chinese expression, an idiom. It says, whenever someone's making a fool of themselves, you should give them free reign to let them dance on the table. They say, let them dance on the table, because then they expect the world as being a real dummy, a real fool, and oh, I think I got I got sound my headphones. So what does that mean? Where's the microphone on this thing? Okay, that controls volume. It sounds like it's still connected. I'm using my son's AirPods. He left them in the car, so I thought I would check them out. My dad had a good expression about keeping your mouth shut. He said, better to be thought a fool by the world than to open your mouth and prove them right." So that's a good one. You remember that one, Sandra? Sandra Sue, if you're out there in Happy Land. Sandra Sue, I see you. Somebody's out there chilling. Give me a yo if you're out in the ideas room. I haven't seen anyone with any yo-yo-yos. Yo, 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 what up, Frank Monday? I know sometimes Sandra Sue just likes to sit back and listen. And Crystal K, I think, does that too. Crystal K, if you're ever out there in Happy Land, little shout out to you. I hope you've been doing well. I haven't heard from you in a while. I haven't seen you in any of the live chats, and I haven't seen you comment on any videos. Yeah, it is Sandra. Yeah, she. I think you like to let me drive. That way, I'm not looking down at the text. That's probably a good idea, but it doesn't bother me too much. I'm pretty safe. But we do have good volume. Oh, that's good. How's everything going? How's your health holding up? How you doing with your as, asceticism? I think it's asceticism. Renunciation. Are you considering yourself to be a renunciant of the world of flaming tobacco? I know you had mentioned that you were working on that a little bit, which again I applaud and commend you. I myself, what I find here's something I find interesting. Riddle me this, Batman. Why are you able to buy tax-free products like alcohol and tobacco from the airport, right? I was in there with my wife and it was very reasonably priced cartons of cigarettes like Dunhill and other top brands. Um, I think it's a British, is 555 British or American? It says it's Virginia tobacco, but I think it worked out to be something like $15 for a carton of cigarettes here in the airport in Beijing. So that's like $1.25 a pack US, right? $1.50, something like that. Um, yeah, $1.50, a little more maybe. And I thought, why can you buy those? And then I was talking to my wife about it. I'm like, can't I just come down to the airport anytime I want to buy a couple of cartons of good cigarettes for a cheap price? And she's like, no, you can only do it when you're arriving. And I'm like, that's weird. Oh, why is that? How's that set up? Because obviously they can buy and sell tobacco at that price, right? They've got the monopoly on it. So why would you, as soon as you walk out of the airport, why would you have to pay 5 times that in the regular towns and stuff? There should be, it seems to me like there should be duty free shops available all over the place. And most things should be duty free. You know, governments don't operate on taxes anyway. They collect taxes just to disenfranchise the people, but all the money that they'd use, like for their budgeting and stuff, and the money they actually spend is debt-based currency that they just, fiat debt-based currency that they print from their friends over at the Fed, the Federal Reserve. So they just print up the money they want and then use it, and then they say you owe them. They're like, hey, we printed all this money and used it on your behalf. And it's like, fuck, you didn't. When, where, why, and how did you use it on my behalf? Show me the evidence of that. I guess one example is the road I'm driving on, right? And the waterworks and stuff like that. But a lot of that was done, hundreds of years ago. Some of it. There's alien and failing infrastructure all over the world that was built a long, long time ago and isn't really well maintained sometimes. But I think there just needs to be greater clarity in accounting, and I guess they can kind of justify any level of spending they want based on the future, right? A lot of it's based on the anxiety and apprehension of the future. They say, well, this may or may not happen, and so we had better get ready for it. And then a lot of times the examples they base that on are things they themselves did in order to create a need for those services. And then they kind of fail in the job of getting all that done anyway. Anyway, I'm preaching to the choir, which is good. God fearing people out there, love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thine heart. Yeah. The King James version has the good language, right? The old English. It's not old English, I would imagine. It's modernized, maybe Middle English. Uh, what do they call that style of English? Because I know for a while now, the modern English was called the Queen's English. And then the older English was called the King's English, right? But that stuff has good dramatic, theatrical effect. Thou art, holy art thou, Lord of the universe, the vast and the mighty one, creator of heaven and earth, maker of all things visible and invisible, master of both the light and the darkness, he who was, is, and always shall be. We adore thee and we invoke thee. Send us one of your divine spiritual agents, the holy guardian angel, to protect and guide us through the innumerable snares of the earthly sphere, and a cleansing wind to disperse all negativity and endless human opinion. Although we are not worthy, Lord, we approach you in great humility in the name of your beloved Son. I always heard only begotten Son, but then I remember too that Christ said we are all children of God. And so it's like, which is it? Are you hemming and hawing a little bit there? Are you hedging your bets? Okay, I've arrived. So yeah, I can look at the chat now. Um, okay, take it slow. Be mindful of it. I like to think of there are certain times when I got to take breaks from the old wacky tobacco. And I think one of the best practices for a person who's a smoker and wants to maybe smoke less or at least be conscious of it is being mindful. So being mindful of, okay, I'm picking up the pack, and observe your processes through each part of the process. Take out the cigarette, look at it, make sure it's clean, it's wrapped right, it's not broken. Pack it down a little bit. Click your lighter maybe once or twice. Look at that, and then screw it in and light it up. But take a little puff. My point being, I think that it's really helpful if you don't smoke on autopilot. So like rather than smoking on autopilot, be mindful. Go through the manual process of reviewing the go through the observational manual system of the process. I think it's helpful. JP Farrell, the writer that I named cigarettes after, had to quit because he had a heart attack and he had to have like triple bypass surgery or something. And his doctor told him, "Wow, you better quit. It's gonna kill you probably." But it's the heart that's killing him, right? Not the smoking. So I'm suspicious that he still gets a puff here and there. But when we watched him on Dark Journalist, he would chain smoke 100s, just one after another, in such rapid fire that everybody kind of pointed it out. And then he had a heart attack right after that. So um, it's better not to get too much into that automated behavior, right? Try to control it a little bit. Watch the smoke burn, take a nice relaxing puff, enjoy the fragrance of the burning tobacco. Get a nice stout drag. They're really enjoyable with coffee, right? A cup of coffee to wash down the nicotine and tar, and then get yourself another nice puff when you're ready. But I do it this way. I offer myself a smoke as a reward for doing different things. So I'll be like, okay, well, there are these certain tasks that I absolutely need. I need to get done. So am I gonna have a cigarette, or am I going? Or I mean, I'll have a cigarette once I finish those tasks. So and I'll think that, and then when the desire for having a cigarette arises, rather than going to the cigarette, I'll go do the task, and then I'll end up forgetting about it oftentimes and working for an hour or 2 hours straight without a smoke. And it's good being back at work too, because it puts me from like 7. Well, I have breakfast and I'll go back to the apartment and have a smoke before class starts. And then it'll be 8 to 12, 4 hours. And then I'll have lunch, and then I'll have a smoke after lunch. And then I'll take a nap, and then I'll go from like 2:30 to 6:30. So another 4 hours. So I find that useful, and it's the reason I set myself up in a job like this. I was actually working freelance before. Thank you for that, Sandra. She says she's proud of me. Um, I was working freelance before, but I found that I was on the road a lot, and it made me smoke even more because every job I had to like sell on my own. I had to go into companies and different. I mean, this is at one point in my career anyway, but I had to do all the footwork and legwork and do promo classes all the time in order to secure new contracts. And it was like being on the road all the time. And when you're on the road, you'll tend to be more abusive to yourself, a little more indulgent. You'll spend a little more money. Of course, I was making a little more money. This job was actually a step down in money for the amount of hours that I put here. But those hours turn out to be that I'm using a lot more of those hours for self cultivation. I can walk around the campus doing some deep breathing exercises, do a little kung fu, interact with some friendly kids and colleagues. So it's kind of fun. It is what it is. And it always changes. You can't be complacent, you know. As soon as you get settled in, that's when there's the lightning strike, the blasted tower, and then you got to kind of rebuild. But each time you learn something. I do, anyway. I tend to learn from each experience of the lightning strike. So how do you prevent big dynamic upheavals by the lightning strike? Well, what comes right before the lightning strike? It's the devil, right? And what comes right before the devil? Temperance. So as you're transitioning through those phases in the major arcana, you can use the energy of the holy guardian angel to guide and protect you through the territory of the devil, the dark night of the soul. And if you deal with the devil correctly, then you can get past him, and you're in your wizard tower and the lightning strike occurs, and it won't be, you'll be ready for it, right? So you have preempted it, and you won't be as shocked or startled by it because, it's actually something that you summon. Your other than conscious mind sometimes works. Well, it does. That whole process works in a rota, right? The wheel. So it's cyclical. When in any given stage that you find yourself along the rotation of the secret teaching, then you'll know the next step. You'll know the next transformation, the next manifestation in that step. And so things aren't, if you learn your tarot and divination good enough, then and really get it ingrained at a subconscious level, then there won't be any big surprises for you. And even when there is a big surprise that's unfathomable, then the inco- contained within the tarot teaching are the tools to resolve it more effectively and to deal with it. I have arrived, guys. It's 6 a.m. I got some bookkeeping to do in the office, and then I'm going to have breakfast at 7. So thank you for tuning in. It's good to see all of you. It's good to see you, Sandra. I'm glad that you feel well enough that you haven't given up all your hopes and dreams, and you're still burning your tobacco to the spirits. Um, Keeping a tidy house, that was one of your big things when I was a kid, man. You were one of the tidiest people I knew, always cooking and cleaning and getting up to domestic affairs. So yeah, keep it tidy, keep the dust. The dust is one of your, because of the animal dander and cat fur and stuff like that, and the dog now too, right? That you might want to get like a shop vac or something to try to, um, yeah, get some of that dust and webbing and stuff like that. Because that I noticed that's got a more detrimental effect than smoking does. Because when I first got in there, like me and Dre couldn't even breathe, man. And Dre's got already some allergies. And so he sneezes a lot, and it's kind of hard for him to breathe in a dusty environment. And even me, a seasoned warrior of the old days, and even I felt a little bit perturbed by it. But I did my best. At least I got my little yellow room, my sanctuary, back in order a little bit and cleaned it up. And I helped out too with some of the other rooms a little bit. Um, but that little room where you guys use for storage, that's going to need to be tackled. You don't have to do it though. I wouldn't even recommend that you do it, but I think that that'll be, like I told you, next summer. I would like to take on that task of that little middle room, because if I level up that floor and then clean it all out and make it usable again, like to the extent that it's friendly to go into, better lighting, maybe get a bigger window there and stuff like that, then it will improve the quality of your life. Like, even though you continue to use it for kitty cat and stuff like that, and storage and that kind of thing, it'll definitely improve the quality of life, because beauty affects the spirit, believe it or not. You want to have pleasant, especially when you're spending like 90% of your time in a little house. You want to have working things and a pleasant environment around you. You don't want to go in and see clutter. I know that's why you always get rid of clutter. But if it's organized and cleaned up, then it's not clutter, right? Then it's useful items, as long as they are useful items. But yeah, when it gets into clutter and then the cats invade it with the fur and the puking and the pooping, then then it can become a nightmare. But again, it can be dealt with pretty effectively. But you run out of energy, you start working on something and you figure, hey, I got 2 3 weeks to do this, and you put a lot of good effort in, but then you succumb to exhaustion and you have to rest a little bit. And then ennui sets in. But I won't have ennui the next time around, because I've done the assessment and I know exactly what to deal with, and I can do some planning in advance. And I purchased some good tools and stuff like that. So good fun, good fun. I gotta run though. Y'all good looking sex people stay well out in Happy Land. I will see you in the abodes of the future. Check me out on www.buymeacoffee.com/Frank Monday. If this was your first time, don't let it be your last time. Hit the thumbs up, come back later and leave a comment on the video. And as we wander into the abodes of the future, keep doing good magic. Ad Astra per Aspera. Until next time, bye. Bye, Susan.